We need like a blooper reel for the end of the year.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, this is the banter.
Yeah, open up the show with that. This is Campus Lore Live, where NFL players are the experts on college football. This week we have Jonathan Allen from the Washington Redskins and Alabama to talk about Alabama's start to the 2019 season and what's going on in the SEC, and Bryce Love from the Washington Redskins and Stanford University to talk about the Pac-12, Stanford, and can they get a team in the college football playoff. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside Aaron Murray. And Aaron, let's get into it. 2 weeks of college football 2019 in the books. And one thing that everybody is talking about right now, those LSU Tigers, man, they look legit.
Oh, they look incredible. Probably the best team right now in college football. If you want to look at who's being the best, well, they had a game against Texas on the road, and they went out there and dominated. And I want to focus a little bit on Joe Burrow and his development from year one to year two. And let's not forget, he showed up last year in the summertime, so he missed all spring. He's getting to know his offensive line by their names, the receivers, trying to learn the routes, the playbook, all this stuff. And he had a good year. He started off a little slow. The accuracy was a little bit questionable, but he progressed. And then all of a sudden, in comes Joe Brady, the new passing game coordinator, and it has been night and day. It reminds me similar of my freshman year at Georgia. You know, come in, and you don't want to put too much on a freshman quarterback. You kind of keep it nice and vanilla, a lot of run plays. And I'm like, listen, Coach Bobo, like, I ran the spread offense in high school. Like, we threw it 40 times a game. Like, don't be afraid to throw it. All of a sudden, year two, he's like, okay, fine, let's open this up a little bit. Let's have some fun. We threw like 30-something touchdowns that year. And this is something similar but different. It's a completely different offense, new coordinators, something that Joe Burrow, feels very comfortable in. And you're seeing it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they got tons of great receivers on the outside. The offensive line's been probably the biggest surprise to me. Those guys have gelled extremely well. But the accuracy, the timing, the anticipation, what Joe Burrow is doing on the football field right now, in my mind, is proven that, one, he is a legitimate Heisman contender. And two, if I'm an NFL scout and I'm looking at him, I'm looking at Herbert and Tua. Yeah, the offense is the most similar to an NFL-style offense. I think Joe Burrow is a legitimate top 5 pick in the NFL draft right now.
What?
Top 5 pick in the NFL draft.
Top 5?
Top 5 pick. I would take him over Tua. I would take him over Herbert. He's running a pro-style offense. Wow. The accuracy, he's athletic. He's 6'4". He looks pretty when he stands up in front of all these NFL scouts. So he's checking off every single box you want right now. I don't know how you can knock him. So if he continues this, I know it's a long season ahead of us, but if he continues on this path, he'll win a Heisman and he'll be possibly the number one draft.
All right.
If you had to pick a Heisman right now, who are you going with?
Well, I mean, clearly through 2 weeks, Joe Burrow is at the top of the list. LSU scored 55 points in week 1 against Georgia Southern, 45 a week ago in Austin against a top 10 Texas team. So they have caught a ton of headlines for sure. And just remember, Joe Burrow, transfer quarterback from Ohio State. We'll talk more about transfers in just a bit. But also last week, Texas A&M went into Clemson. They were ranked number 12. Clemson, of course, is ranked number 1. And Clemson just did more of what Clemson does. They get up for big games now. They rise to their level of competition. That defense is stout, and that offense has weapons literally all over the field. You said you'd take Joe Burrow top 5. You might not take him over a guy, though, who's not eligible to be in the draft. That, of course, is Trevor Lawrence.
Well, that's why I'm not taking him. Yeah. Because Trevor Lawrence has to stay, and he had a good game. He did. He was very accurate with the football. The late pick, kind of, a little blemish on the stat line at the end of the day. But you know what's about rising to the occasion and not rising? I thought Kellond Mond, for me, was the biggest disappointment. You saw him last season in this game versus Clemson kind of have his coming out party of like, hey, I'm going to be a pretty good quarterback under Jimbo Fisher. And the rest of the season was pretty good. And then he was chirping all off season, hey, I'm the best quarterback in the SEC. Very confident. He has skill guys around him too. And usually quarterbacks under Jimbo Fisher, year 2, just skyrocket. But I turn on the game, I watched the film again, and it looked like he kind of tumbled under the pressure a little bit. He kind of felt it on the road, big time team, a lot of pressure, and he crumbled. And he seemed nervous. And a lot of time with quarterbacks, you can tell because the ball will start to float a little bit. You're so worried about not making a mistake that you actually make mistakes because you're trying to just nice and easy. Let me just throw a nice one. You try to guide the football. Yeah. Listen, you have a big, strong arm. You're athletic. You got great receivers. He just needs to let it rip. You saw that last year, and you saw it in week 1. He was making all these acrobatic throws, but he was just letting it rip. He was having fun. I didn't see that versus Clemson. I saw a quarterback that was trying not to lose the football game instead of a quarterback trying to win the game. And you can't do that versus a team like Clemson. So hopefully he rebounds. And for Clemson right now, once you got through A&M, it's ACC cakewalk the rest of the way, and it's a pretty easy schedule. If they can get through their tough game versus Syracuse, they should be good to go.
Tough game for Syracuse. We'll see what happens this upcoming weekend.
Past 2 years has been a little shaky.
Little wonky for sure. You talk about letting it rip, though. 2 guys who have certainly let it rip. These are some transfer quarterbacks we just mentioned. Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma and Justin Fields at Ohio State. I'm going to give you another name, though. Josh Jackson at Maryland. Maryland has scored 79 points and 63 points against Syracuse, who you just mentioned. But these are transfer quarterbacks who are making an immediate splash. Tons of talent, tons of execution. That's a good combination.
I think the most impressive for me is Justin Fields. You want to talk about all these quarterback transfers and who has the most pressure on heading the year? I think it was Justin, a guy that was the #1 recruit in the country, came in at times last year at the University of Georgia and played behind Jake Fromm, but really didn't get to see too much of him and what his abilities could be. So I still think there's a lot of hype and excitement, and I thought he might have a little bit of pressure heading into the season. But I tell you what, the big knock I had at him watching film from when he did get in at the University of Georgia was the fact that everything had to be a fastball.
Yeah.
You know, he's a big kid. He's 6'3", 225. He's athletic, big, strong arm. But a lot of the times, and I had guys in both college and NFL tell me, and I don't have nearly as strong as arm as Justin has. I'm not trying to compare myself to him, but they would say, don't throw it so hard. Just put it with some touch and pace, make it catchable, make it nice and easy for me. And I watch him right now, and he's doing that. I think he matured a lot just within one offseason of understanding, like, okay, there is a time and place for me to bring out my arm. There's a time and place when I got to fit it between 2 linebackers. There's a time and place when I got to launch a post ball or a go ball and really show off my cannon. But the majority of the time, it's about being on time with your footwork. It's about being accurate. And like you said, Drew, having the ability to make a ball catchable for a receiver, tight end, running back. I think that's where he's taking that next step this year. And he's looked phenomenal. I know they still have a lot of tough games to go. They got to play in-conference game. But Cincinnati was no joke. That's a good defense. I covered them twice last year. They got some studs on that side of the football. And he's made it look easy. But his footwork has been great. His pocket awareness, his ability to get through the reads, and then most important, like I said, his touch with the football and accuracy has far exceeded my expectations for him year 1 with Ohio State.
So would you rather take that raw talent that's working hard to get better, as you're saying Justin Fields is, or a guy like Jalen Hurts? We've never seen a transfer quarterback with that type of resume, national champion, SEC champion, unbelievable starting record as a quarterback. Now you put him in that Oklahoma offense with Lincoln Riley at the helm. 2 Heisman winners in a row, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray. Jalen's already putting up Heisman-like numbers. And again, I go back to those intangibles in the Big 12 where they're really going to only have to get up for 1 or 2 games this year, that Texas game and the Red River Shootout. And then if they make it to the Big 12 game, that will be Jalen Hurts' time to shine. But that's a decision right there. Who's going to have a better 2019, Hurts or Fields?
Well, I think Fields. I really do. I think he's only going to continue to get better. I mean, he's played a lot less games than Jalen Hurts, and you've already seen a huge progress from him. But, Drew, I wish I had 1 more year left of eligibility.
You couldn't put up these numbers.
I would put up stupid numbers at Oklahoma. It may not be the rushing numbers, but I guarantee you with those defenses and the lack of tackling and the lack of coverage and guys playing 10 yards. I mean, go back to that game versus Houston. I know Houston's not in the conference, but very similar style of defense to what we see in the Big 12. It was I throw a quick slant and let my receiver take it for 70 yards. Let me throw a quick hitch. Guy makes one guy miss, and then boom, he's off to the races. Not taking anything away. I think Jalen's done a tremendous job these first 2 weeks. He's accurate. He's really embraced the offense. But I tell you what, for some reason, if you're the Oklahoma quarterback with Lincoln Riley and that conference and with the skill around you, it's hard not to be good. So if I'm a high school recruit, why not go to Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Why not go to a place like LSU that's running a pro-style offense that you're going to throw the ball a ton and you're going to have a ton of talent around you? So I think some of these schools are really buying into this new style of offense. And I think it's really gaining the attention of transfer quarterbacks and a lot of the high school seniors.
I give you a hard time, but Aaron Murray, of course, SEC's all-time leading passer in yards and touchdowns. And another thing that you and Jalen Hurts have in common, I mean, Jalen Hurts, transfer from Alabama, but he did it the right way. He graduated. He is loved by that fan base.
I know it's a really soft subject for you.
He's very well respected.
I know.
He did it the right way, though. I got all the respect in the world for him.
I know one quarterback you did not name is your boy Kelly Bryant.
No, I did not name Kelly Bryant. He quit on his team.
This man is not a big fan. Drew wants you to do it the right way.
You have to do it the right way.
I think that's another one
who
rough up and down first game for Kelly Bryant, Missouri, but I think second week really coming into his own. Alberto, their tight end, he's learning, hey, I got a great matchup. Let me take advantage of this.
Aaron, you're going with Justin Fields and that raw talent being developed throughout the rest of the season. I'm taking Jalen Hurts with the intangibles, the resume, but when you look at the grand scheme of things and those transfer quarterbacks we just talked about, the Big Ten reaping the benefits, if you want to call it that. Fields at Ohio State, you have Josh Jackson at Maryland, and then Shea Patterson at Michigan. Michigan almost lost to Army this past weekend in the Big House.
I don't know if Michigan's reaping the benefits of Shea right now. I was high on him last season and this season. New offensive coordinator, going to spread it out, use some of those athletes. And I think for Shea the rest of the season, my goal for him is what we're seeing from Justin Fields. Learn to put some touch on the football. Too many times I see him trying to muscle it in there, throw a rocket. It's inaccurate. The ball's behind the guy. He has to catch it, fall down, or he has to catch it, slow down, and then he gets tackled. If he just slows it down a little bit, find a way to make it more catchable, allow the guy, his receiver, to stay on the move, those yaks go up, wins go up, his percentage goes up. So he needs to learn there's not always a fastball. A changeup is a good thing.
Michigan lucky to win that game 24-21 into overtimes. That would have really shaken up the Big Ten. But one team that's making a lot of noise through 2 weeks is Maryland, led by Josh Jackson, the transfer quarterback from Virginia Tech. They scored 79 points in week 1, 63 in week 2 against Syracuse, who was ranked in the top 25. Could they test Ohio State later on this season?
I don't know. I don't know how good Syracuse really is. Syracuse did not look good week 1. Obviously, they did not look good. I think they scored 42 points, Maryland, in that first half. Listen, the offense is rolling. Four running backs had touchdowns in that game. Like you said, Jackson's been balling out these first 2 weeks. But let's wait till they get into further conference play. I think Ohio State right now is just head and shoulders over everyone else. Defensively, they're much improved from last season. Offensively, Dobbins, Fields at quarterback, the plethora of talent on the outside. I think it's going to be too much for anyone. I had Michigan early on to win this conference. Through 2 weeks, I know it's early in the season. I just don't see them stacking up talent-wise.
Yeah, Maryland still has to play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Michigan in the Big Ten East. And one team to watch in the Big Ten through 2 weeks, Wisconsin. Whoa.
Jonathan Taylor, man.
0 points allowed.
You know why?
Lots of points on the board. Good
because
combo.
Our boy Hornibrook is gone.
That's
finally.
right.
You know how much I disliked Hornibrook.
That is right.
He's probably like the nicest kid in the world. And I just ripped him to shreds last season, which I think a lot of people did. But he is gone. New quarterback in. Taking care of the football. At the end of the day, just give it to your workhorse. Jonathan Taylor, he's a dark horse. I don't even know if you consider him a dark horse for the Heisman. Not giving as much love, but I mean, if he has another season around 2,000 yards, he'll be in New York.
A lot of people questioning the SEC, the SEC East, the SEC Least, if you could call it that. But one conference division that's struggling right now through 2 weeks, the ACC Coastal. Not a good look. Miami unbeaten. Virginia is 2-0. But who's going to come out of the ACC Coastal as it looks right now?
I like Virginia. Perkins at quarterback. He's a stud. I know a lot of people are all excited about Mac Brown, UNC, 2-0, 2 big wins to start the season off. Listen, Miami has a lot of work to do. We thought their defense would carry them this year. First game versus Florida, they were up and down. Obviously, second week, they let a freshman quarterback go in there and throw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So defensively, they're not as good as maybe we were anticipating. That offensive line is just not good. Plain and simple, we saw it first week. Second week got a little better. It went from 10 sacks to 4 sacks.
I mean, my goodness.
Maybe they'll get to 2 and then maybe 0 for a game. But they are definitely a little bit behind right now in that division, which is surprising. We all thought Miami would be kind of the cowbell, but I like Virginia and UNC right behind them.
Yeah, tough 2 losses for Miami to start of the season. And you mentioned Virginia. Bryce Perkins paired with Bronco Mendenhall. That's a good combination. When you have a solid quarterback with a solid head coach, you would assume that they'll be able to get things going in the ACC Coastal. And when you do have that 0-2 start, Aaron, and you and I actually started a season 0-2 back in 2011, it wasn't too fun, but guess what we did after that? We ripped off 10 straight wins and won our division. What's it really like? I mean, this is essentially the preseason in college football, if you want to call it that. You got to get the kinks out. You got to find some improvement from week 1 to week 2, and then you better catch your groove quick or your season's over in a hurry.
Well, for some of these teams, it's unfortunate the way you start a year off. But for like a team like Tennessee, who should be 2-0 right now, it's tough because you haven't even gotten into the thick of your season. I mean, let's just take Tennessee. We'll beat up Tennessee for a little bit.
Let's do it.
You should be starting off 2-0 based on what you have, your coaching staff, how much you're paying your coaching staff, and the players. You're 0-2. Hopefully win this week. You just don't know. But then you start getting into the meat of Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Florida. So then all of a sudden, when you could be 3-0, you could be 1-6, and there's a good chance they will be 1-6. So you always want to get off to a fast start. For us, it was tough, but we had some great leadership. I think it's the biggest key for these teams is who is your leader? Because all of a sudden you hear all the chirping from the media, from the fans, from boosters, from guys in the locker room. You got to find someone to say, hey, enough's enough. Shut up. We're playing football. I'm the leader of this team. No more. And these teams got to look in the mirror. And I think the leaders of the team is going to step up, and that's the biggest thing. But some of these teams may not have leaders, and that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Miami's in a tough spot. Manny Diaz in his first year as head coach, a coach who's in his second year that the team is also 0-2. Chip Kelly, UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson not playing very well. They just dropped their second game to San Diego State. San Diego State won their week 1 game 6-0 against Weber State. So this is not good out west for Chip Kelly and the UCLA Bruins. Who knows where this goes? Again, a ton of money being paid to a head coach and no results.
Why don't we become head coaches?
Quick. We could become
I swear, give me $5 million. I'll go coach at UCLA.
Well, you
said I want to be 0-2.
You said your team had great leadership when you started off 0-2. I was a senior that year, so thanks for calling me a great leader.
Special teams leaders are the best leaders.
There you go. Absolutely. And speaking of another great leader who we're about to talk to, Jonathan Allen from the Washington Redskins and All-American from Alabama is going to join us next. Stay tuned. Let's welcome in our first guest from the Washington Redskins, a 2017 first-round draft pick and a unanimous All-American from the University of Alabama, Jonathan Allen. Thanks so much for joining us on Campus Lore Live. How are you doing today?
Doing good. How about yourself? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing awesome. Thanks, man. Hey, let's jump right into it. Alabama has a huge game coming up this weekend. They are going to Columbia to take on South Carolina and open up conference play. The big storyline is Jake Bentley is out for the Gamecocks. That leaves Ryan Helinski, a true freshman, to start only his second game. So I'm going to ask you, what's the message that Coach Saban is giving that defense that has so much talent? Because it seems like there is a huge advantage for the Crimson Tide before this game.
The biggest thing would be not to fall into the media trap. And when I say the media trap, you look at it, they don't have their quarterback. They're coming in the backward quarterback. They're the underdogs. It feels almost like a trap game. And, we really don't believe in that, So Coach Saban will come in and tell us it's not about who we play or where we play. It's about us and what we do. And I genuinely believe that. It doesn't matter who they have at quarterback. Our defense line, we want to dominate the line of scrimmage. We want to get pressure on the quarterback and stop the run with the light box and allow our guys to play coverage on the back end. So as much as you got to give, South Carolina props and respect for what they do, it's not really about them. It's about what Alabama does. And if they go into it with that mindset, they'll be successful. And that's what Coach Saban's telling them right now.
Yeah, Alabama's clearly been effective on the defensive side of the ball for a number of years under Coach Saban's coaching. And funny that South Carolina has a true freshman quarterback. Alabama has 2 true freshman linebackers playing in Christian Harris and Shane Lee. What does that do for the defensive line? Because those are your signal callers. Those are the leaders that have to get everybody ready to play.
The way I genuinely feel, Coach Saban will never put a player out there who's not ready for the moment. And as crazy as it sounds, the games are the easiest times for Alabama players because during practice, you're going through so much preparation and there's so much pressure on you. And Coach Saban makes practice as hard as he can physically and possibly, as hard as you can imagine. When you go into the game, the calls get simplified. The scheme isn't as complicated as to what they run. So Coach Saban does a great job of preparing the team for the game with brutal weeks of practice. So, I feel very confident in their ability to go out there and make the right calls and communicate. This is their third week, so it's the third time they're doing this whole routine of getting ready for the game on a Saturday. So I have every bit of confidence in them.
What's this offseason been like, do you think, for this Alabama team? You look last year, SEC championship game, Georgia kind of, I wouldn't say had their way, but offensively moved the ball pretty efficiently. Then the playoffs and then the national championship versus Clemson. Trevor Lawrence had a field day, the receivers, the running backs. What's been the message, and how can this defense get over that hurdle when they play like elite quarterback and elite receivers like we saw last year in the playoffs?
From personal experience, I've been through two off seasons similar to the one that Alabama's going through right now, and it's not fun. It's not fun. And every chance that they get, they're being reminded of how they played in that national championship game. So throughout the whole off season, they're hearing about what they did against Clemson. You know, being Alabama, when you do get knocked off, people love it. They always want to come after Alabama. So it's been a long off season for them, and it's been a long time for them to stew over it and just really just mull it over and just let it all sink in. So they definitely, I know this sounds crazy, they got a chip on their shoulder this season, especially defensively. Because right now, you can't say Alabama's the best team in the nation after what happened last year. So they have a lot to play for, and especially with a lot of young guys and a lot of young faces, there's a big chip on these guys' shoulders. But I'm excited to see what they do this year.
Yeah, Jonathan, two teams that are really the class of college football right now and that have been for the past number of years are Clemson and Alabama. I'm going to ask you, a guy from Anniston, Alabama, is Clemson, Alabama a rivalry? Is it a rivalry as big as Alabama-Auburn, or is Clemson, Alabama just a trend that's happening these past couple of years?
For me, I would say it's a rivalry. You know, I feel like for a rival to be considered a rivalry, it has to go back and forth. And the last time Auburn beat us, I think, was my freshman year back in 2013. Now, it's definitely, no matter what, it'll always be a rivalry. But going into the season, you know, if we want to get to where we want to get to, we're going to have to go through Clemson. And, you know, obviously you don't think about it that way, but that's the way it's been happening the last 4 seasons. So I definitely would say it's a rivalry. And at the back of your mind, you're always thinking about it. But for the players' point of view, they're not worried about Clemson, because if they worry about Clemson, they're not going to make it past LSU or Ole Miss or Texas A&M and all these other great teams that they have to play. But from a fan's point of view, which I am at this point, I'm a fan, I consider it a rivalry. You know, myself going 1-1 against them.
You mentioned those teams in the SEC West, Alabama traveling to Texas A&M, and of course playing in Jordan-Hare Stadium. The Iron Bowl is at Auburn this year. What was the hardest game for you in Alabama to play in the SEC year after year?
I don't know what it was about Ole Miss, but Ole Miss just seemed to give us so much trouble when I was at Alabama. I went 2-2 against them, and my senior year we were down 23-4 in the second quarter. So it easily could have been a 1-3, my record against Ole Miss. So I don't know what it was about Ole Miss. They just had. I don't know. I really can't answer, but they had our number for a little bit, and they always gave us a good fight. So for me, Ole Miss would definitely be the team that we just couldn't. You know, we weren't firing on all cylinders when we played them.
When you look at the SEC as a whole, it seems like the West has been so dominant for, I don't know, 8-10 years, and then you look last year, the East finally started making some noise. Actually had a better record versus the West. And then all of a sudden, all this talk about Florida, Missouri, Kentucky, maybe Vanderbilt may have another good year this year, Georgia. And then you see in the first 2 weeks of the season, and once again, the West is dominant. Alabama, LSU, A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State looks good. What's the pride factor when it comes to the West versus the East within the SEC?
It's a big pride factor. It's funny, when we talk to other players in the locker room in Washington, it's not a debate. SEC is the best conference in football. But within the SEC, when I say SEC, I mean the SEC West. In my time, SEC West is the true SEC team. So there's definitely a lot of pride factor between East versus West. And we always joke with the Florida guys that, you know, it's not really a competition at this point.
It's the SEC West and Georgia.
That's correct.
That's pretty much it right now.
Yeah.
And then everyone else at the end of the day.
Hey, one of the guys in the SEC East that is getting a lot of attention for all the wrong reasons is somebody that you actually played for, and that's Jeremy Pruitt, the now head coach at Tennessee. What are your thoughts about how Coach Pruitt's doing at Tennessee? I know you guys had a lot of success together at Alabama, but, man, he's running up against some tough times, and they've got a really tough stretch of schedule in Knoxville coming up.
I love Coach Pruitt. The one thing I really value about Coach Pruitt is he lets the players play the game. One thing he does is he doesn't make his scheme the focal point of why the team has success in Alabama. You know, I feel like a lot of coaches get caught up in trying to make their scheme the highlight, but Coach Pruitt did a great job of highlighting what the players did best and running with it. As far as Tennessee, it's tough. I feel like when you're going in an SEC program, I mean, it's going to take 3-4 years to get the type of guys you want in there to really overhaul. You know, there's very few cases where a coach has come in and turned things around overnight. I mean, even Coach Saban, he turned it around quick. His first year, he went like 7-6, 6-6, something like that. He didn't have a good record. So, I mean, the SEC is a tough conference, and it's going to take time, you know. In today's day and age where coaches don't get a lot of time, it's tough. But, I mean, from a great coach, great recruiter, great person, I would love to play for him.
Yeah, I'm sure he misses a player like you on that defensive line. My man Aaron Murray might think a little bit differently. Here's what we should do. You guys should line up in an Oklahoma drill. I'll blow the whistle, and whoever wins is right on Coach Brew and Aaron.
Football, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm done with that. I don't know what you're
Yeah, Jonathan, any predictions for what do you think Alabama's going to be able to do this upcoming season? Because obviously they don't want to avenge what happened in the college football playoff championship just a year ago. And they're off to a good start, but LSU looks great. A huge victory for Joe Burrow and the Tigers in Austin last weekend. What do you think is going to happen in 2019 for your Crimson Tide?
You know, it's so hard to say what can happen. I mean, injuries have a part of it. And the problem that Alabama faces, and this is the problem that we face when we're there, is championship or nothing. So going into the season, every player knows if we don't win a national championship, it's a failure. As good as Alabama was last year, the whole season, you can just throw it away. Done with it. No one cares. Oh, well, boo-hoo, it sucks. It's done. And for a player, I feel like it's easy to get caught up in focusing on the national championship and not taking care of what's in front of you next. And that's how you can have a game where you come out flat against a Mississippi State team and they can get on top of you and you can lose that game, you know. So that's a trap that I feel like Alabama has always had to deal with. So it really just depends on how they deal with that. You know, you can't take for granted any team you're playing. I mean, as you can see, I mean, anybody can be beat on any day in football. So you really got to take it 1 week at a time. And if Alabama does that, hopefully we'll see Clemson again.
Jonathan, you look at the NFL draft every year, and it's always heavy Alabama, heavy SEC. But I want to focus, obviously, on the Alabama boys. What's going on there in Tuscaloosa? I mean, what are you guys eating? What's going on in the weight room? What's going on in the meeting room? It just seems like, you know, you guys are so much better prepared to take on the NFL. And even when you get there, say your rookie year, did you feel more prepared to take on the playbook, to take on the weight room, to take on practices as then an NFL football player?
100%. One thing that always stuck with me that Coach Saban said when he recruits is when you're deciding where college you want to go to, it's not a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision. So when you get here, listen, if you want to have fun in college, go to Miami, go to USC. Not saying anything about those programs, but those are fun locations. We're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. There's nothing out there besides football, and that's what you're there for, obviously, with your education. So when you get there, it's a job. It's a job. I didn't go to Alabama to have fun. And more times than not, college wasn't fun for me, but it was a sacrifice that I was willing to make to get to where I wanted to go. And if you look at it from that way, I mean, I feel like if you went down and experienced what those guys go through, you see why they have the success. They're putting in long hours, a lot of work, extra, just doing every little thing they can to help prepare them for this and their next level in the next future. So Coach Saban has a great thing going on, and he just has everybody bought into the fact that I came here with a goal and a purpose, and that's what I want to do.
Drew, that's the problem. Athens is too fun. That's why Georgia doesn't win. I don't know if you've ever been to Athens, Georgia, but it is, 100 bars downtown right on campus.
I haven't.
Yeah.
It's too much fun.
It is a lot of fun.
We need to get rid of downtown Athens. Then Georgia would win some more championships. That's the key.
I think we have 3 bars we go to. That's it. You have 3 to choose from, and that's it.
I've been to all 3 of them, Jonathan, so I would know. No, hey, you talk about the sacrifice, and I saw you wrote that great Players Tribune article where you talked about what Coach Saban said to you when he recruited you. I think he even might have turned down some of your mother's food at your home, but you said, hey, he did not blow smoke. He said, here's what's going to happen if you come to Tuscaloosa. I'm going to prep you for an NFL career. And guess what? It just goes to show what kind of athlete you are and how successful you were because you bought in and you were able to perform at an extremely high level. First-round draft pick, All-American, national champion, SEC champion, and now you can add Campus Lore Live guest. So that is absolutely
there we go.
Fantastic. So, Jonathan, we just want to say thanks so much for kicking off our season, and we appreciate you tuning in with us.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, Aaron, you just heard Jonathan Allen say it. If you don't win a national championship at Alabama, throw the season away.
Well, they got Tua, they got the receivers, the defense, and they got a chip on their shoulder right now. They're coming for Clemson. They're men on a mission right now. I would not mess with those guys.
No, not at all. Speaking of someone you won't want to mess with, we're about to talk to Bryce Love, Washington Redskin and Stanford great, right after the break. welcome in our next guest from the Washington Redskins and Stanford University alum, a 2017 Heisman Trophy runner-up and a unanimous All-American. That, of course, is running back Bryce Love. Bryce, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you, my man?
I'm doing great. Appreciate y'all having me up here.
All right, hey, I'm going to dive right into it. What is going on with the Pac-12? Are they out of it already? We're only 2 weeks into the 2019 college football season.
Nah, I mean, I think we still got some talent out there. No doubt. I mean, of course, I'm going to go with Stanford. You know, we the dark horses out that way. But, I mean, Oregon, I feel like Washington will bounce back too. I mean, it's some good teams out there, and it's a long season, so you never know what will happen.
Why do you think they don't get any love? Is it because a lot of the guys that are watching and people on TV, they don't stay up late enough? I mean, some of those games are like 1 o'clock in the morning, for goodness sake. So half the East Coast is asleep. They miss them. Is that why you think they're not getting any love? I mean, what's the deal? It feels like everyone talks about the other conferences.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. I'll be honest with you. It's my first time being out here trying to watch a Stanford game, and that 10:30 kickoff is for real. I won't lie to you. So, I mean, Stanford SC, we kicked off 10:30 is the time out here, and then halftime is at like 1 o'clock. So I mean that's definitely a hurdle that we got to overcome as a conference. But I mean it's good football out there. I think the biggest thing just is that scheduling thing. I mean it's tough to stay up that late and still watch games. I mean it makes it hard on a lot of people.
Well, they had during media days this year for the Pac-12, they're talking about 9 a.m. kickoffs. I know my boy Drew Butler here needs his beauty sleep, so there's no way Drew Butler would have made at least the first half. He would have had to show up for the second half.
Exactly.
Do you think that's reasonable? I mean, as a player, you know, first of all, you can't sleep the night before a game, so then you have to wake up at 6 a.m. to get ready, 5 a.m. to get ready.
5 a.m. probably,
Great. Like, do you think that's what they need to do? And as a player, would you be for that?
I mean, it's one of those things where we definitely have to start earlier. I don't think 9 a.m. I think 9 a.m. like you said might be a reach as a player. Having to wake up at 6 every weekend, you know, that'll definitely be tough. But I mean, it's just tough. I feel like maybe getting in touch with the other conferences to kind of set up like a regiment that they can make a consistency more so than anything else. I mean, it's tough to play at 9. And it's definitely tough to play that late at night, too. So it's just got to be some kind of middle ground found there.
Another thing that's tough for a conference like the Pac-12 is when they get a chance to produce in prime time, like they had 2 weeks ago when Oregon played Auburn and dropped the game that they were up 21-6. And, I mean, that's the type of situation that the Pac-12 needs to be able to take advantage of. And it seems like now they're just going to continue to beat up on one another and maybe play themselves out of a playoff. But there are two teams who are probably most notably going to be competing for that playoff. And they play next week. That's Utah and USC. So what do you think has to happen? Do you think one of those teams has to run the table in a convincing way? Or can the Pac-12 show that they have really good depth and really good teams throughout the season and a conference champion backdoor their way into the playoff?
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see it going both ways. I mean, I feel like just because of maybe the stigma that the Pac-12 has amongst the voters, that you might have to run the table. But at the same time, you know, I feel like people also acknowledge that there's good football out there. I mean, if you do run the table and you do beat everybody, that's a statement in itself. But even if you have like a one-loss Oregon team or a one-loss UW or Stanford even, I mean, you still got to respect that in a way. Because like you said, I mean, we beat up on each other game after game after game. And, I mean, it's a long season. We don't really take, you know, every week we're playing a conference opponent one way or another. And even our out-of-conference schedules are, you know, still the best teams in the country. So it's just one of those things. I mean, again, just looking at the schedule, taking it for what it is and going from there.
Bryce, I want to keep talking about you guys kind of beating each other up in the Pac-12. Obviously, you look at that conference, 9 conference games, SEC's 8, and everyone will say, you know, 4 games are cupcake games. Out here, we're playing 9 conference games. Do you think that's unfair, and should the SEC and these other conferences add a 9th and even a 10th game to make it a little bit more competitive within their conferences?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like that's a big thing as well in itself. You know, I feel like kind of setting consistency amongst conferences too. You know, maybe having a set number of conference games that everybody has to play. You know, that'll definitely be big and kind of even it out. You know, a lot of times before a big game. Some teams might even play, a different division and things like that. Not that it's not going to be a talented, competitive game, but just in a sense, that imbalance in a way of scheduling, I feel like it's something that needs to be changed as well.
We saw that great game just last week with two freshman quarterbacks going at it, USC and Stanford. Keaton Slovis for the Trojans, Davis Mills for the Cardinal. That was an awesome game in the Coliseum, not exactly at the end for Stanford, but what are some of the more memorable rivals and teams and stadiums that you played in the Pac-12?
Yeah, Pac-12-wise, I'd say the hardest place to play was definitely UW. In I want to say that was 2017, 2016, one of those years. We were both like top 10 teams. It was crazy. There, Oregon my senior year. I'll even go out of conference. Notre Dame was always a fun place to play. It's a lot of good places to play out there. I'll be honest with you. It's a good fan environment. Some of them get a little too rowdy, but it's still fun.
But talk to us a little bit about this newfound passing attack at Stanford. You think Stanford, even with Andrew Luck, it was multiple tight ends, 2 tight ends, 3 tight end sets, run, and then play action pass. And all of a sudden you see KJ Costello, and they're throwing the ball 30-plus times a game. And where did this start coming out? And is this really Stanford football? Is this what we're going to see going forward?
Coach Shaw and, everybody's been doing a good job. I feel like, just going with the ebbs and flow of the game. Nowadays, I feel like the big thing this past year was we had, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Trent Irwin, Caden Smith, Colby Parkinson. We had so much talent at the receiver position. And, really utilizing that has definitely been an advantage to us right now. We definitely have to pick it up in the run game. Even this past year, we had to pick it up too. But, getting better in that asset, as well as maintaining the passing attack that we have. Once it all comes together, it'll be big.
Bryce, so I was recruited by Stanford, but I was a little worried that I was not smart enough to be a quarterback at Stanford. One, you got to do all those classes. And I wanted to go to Athens to have fun. And 2, I just heard that there's like 4 plays in the huddle, and the quarterback has to get to line of scrimmage. And decipher everything. Is this true? Did you guys were you that complicated, and was that much on the quarterback each and every play?
Nah, I'll be honest with you. We do put a lot on the quarterbacks. Obviously, you had the career of your life at UGA, of course. So, we would have loved to have you. But it's really like that. We really run a pro-style offense. And, Coach Shaw really incorporates all that and puts it all on the offense. And that's one of the big benefits I feel of going there. Now that, I'm blessed with the opportunity to be in the league, all that stuff really transitions right over. Being able to understand the concepts, and maybe the terminology might be a little bit different, but so much of it is literally the exact same stuff. And that's definitely been big in my learning process and things like that.
Coach Shaw certainly has run that pro-style offense efficiently at Stanford, but sometimes in those big game situations, we saw it in week 1 against Northwestern in Palo Alto, he'll still make some decisions that I'm sure as a running back, Bryce, or even a quarterback, Aaron, make you scratch your head. And I'm talking about punting when you're on the 31-yard line, 34-yard line. And look, I was a punter, and I would say, you got to go for it there, man. Is that really just game management? And I'm talking about statistics. I'm talking about giving the ball to them with 90-plus yards to go, playing in your favor rather than maybe going for it on a 4th and 5 or longer?
Yeah. It's just one of those things where, you really just, at the end of the day, trust, whatever position Coach Shaw is putting you in, to be honest with you. Whenever you go out there, you just know to focus on your job, know to do your assignment. And if he does punt, you trust the defense to do their job at the end of the day. And that's just a big thing. He's the head honcho. So, whatever he say, we're gonna execute it to the best that we can.
So it's to my disadvantage week 1 of fantasy football. I went against Christian McCaffrey, who I think had like 45 points. So he single-handedly beat me this week. How much film of him did you study while at Stanford, and what did you learn from his game?
Dang, I saw so much of it firsthand too. So many different things. You see it. You see what he's doing in the league now. Just his versatility. His quickness in and out of cuts. The way he runs his routes. How he catches out the backfield. I mean, it's just he does everything, at a high level. And, it's been that way since the day I met him. And, it's carrying on to this very day. And, you see how great he is and how great he's transitioned into the league. And, it's exciting to see, where he's come from and see how he's playing now. It's just motivational to me.
All right, well, Stanford had a big Week 1 win at home against Northwestern. Took one on the chin last week against conference rival USC. Now they have to go to Orlando to take on Central Florida. This is a big bounce-back game for the Cardinal going across the country to take on one of the teams that really would relish the opportunity to knock down a Power 5 team. What do you think, and what are you looking forward to seeing from Stanford this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, you hit it on the head. It's an opportunity. And, opportunity to take advantage of it. I mean, of course, UCF is one of the best teams in the country. They've shown that the past few years. And I'm excited for it. I mean, you have a lot of reasons to go out there and not perform, being that it's all the way across the country and whatnot. But, I'm excited to see the game. I have the faith in my guys and whatnot, everybody out there. And, I believe they'll do good things.
It's going to be a fun time in the bounce house down there at UCF.
Yes, it will. Not sure if KJ Costello is going to be back for the Cardinal, but if he is, I think Stanford will have an awesome opportunity to knock off the Golden Knights and get back into the win column. Well, Bryce, thanks so much for joining us here on Campus Lore, my man. Get healthy, and we will talk to you soon.
Oh, yeah. Thank y'all for having me again. Appreciate it.
Welcome back into Campus Lore Live. Let's turn our attention to Week 3 of this 2019 college football season. But before we do that, I need you to be bold, Aaron. We've seen 2 weeks of football. We've gotten a lot of statistics, a lot of Heisman hype, a lot of forecasting for what's to come in January. What do you believe right now in college football?
So first off, I think the Pac-12 is out. I don't think we'll see a Pac-12. So that starts narrowing things down a little bit. So my be bold is LSU and Alabama will both be in the playoffs this year. I just think LSU is that good.
Two SEC West teams.
Two SEC West teams. I think the game in Tuscaloosa is going to be the game of the year. I think it's going to go back and forth. Two heavyweights just slugging it out. I think it's going to be that close. Alabama goes on, wins the rest of their games. They're going to look at that and say, hey, LSU lost by 3 points, 4 points. They're that good. They deserve a spot in the playoffs. LSU gets the 4th spot. Two SEC West teams are in the playoffs at the end of the year.
Now, usually that game is defensive. You're talking 6-3, 9-6, 10-9. What's going to happen this year? You were already saying LSU is going to lose that game. You said they're going to lose by 3 or something points. They're not even going to have to play in the SEC championship. Then they get invited to the playoffs?
I'm telling you, the way they're playing right now, I think they may win this game. Whoever loses the game is going to be close enough that I think the committee looks at it. If everything shapes up the way I think it could shape up, they would get in over, say, a 1-loss Oklahoma or a 1-loss Texas, a 1-loss Ohio State. These two teams are on a different level, I think, than anyone else besides maybe Clemson right now.
Do you have any family relation, even if it's like a third distant cousin, to Joe Burrow?
No, but
you love this guy.
Joe Burrow for Heisman, man. Joe Burrow for first-round pick. I love it.
He's been doing it. I mean, I have to give him
credit. I'm on the Joe Burrow train right now.
Absolutely. I'm starting to come around to it. I need to see a couple more weeks of consistent play, but he has proven to be pure class in 2019. My be bold, though, and I'm going to stick with the Pac-12. You said the Pac-12's out. Interesting news today. Lynn Swann resigned as the athletic director at Southern Cal. I think Clay Helton has to win the Pac-12 to keep his job. I really do. Look, they're in the market for a new athletic director. If he doesn't win the Pac-12, USC fans are going to be knocking on the door of that athletic director saying, get this guy out, go shopping. We need new blood. We need some new energy to bring USC football back to what it was. You're talking about the Matt Leinart days. You're talking about the Reggie Bush days, Carson Palmer, Heisman Trophy winners, national championship contenders, and most importantly, Pac-12 champions. I think Clay Helton has to win the Pac-12, which is going to be tough with a true freshman quarterback to keep his
Urban
job.
Meyer is right down the street, man.
Oh, my goodness. What if this happened? And what if they went to Jim Tressel and said, be our athletic director, and bring Urban Meyer with you. Could that ever happen?
Oh, anything's possible.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible. And what else is possible is we're talking about coaches losing their jobs. Florida State, bad start. Tennessee, awful start. UCLA, horrible start under Chip Kelly. Let's do a little bit of forecasting 2019. Which team's going to have the most wins at the end of the season? 3 really historic programs, especially Florida State and Tennessee. UCLA, no slouch in itself.
Well, Chip Kelly right now, they can't get the offense going.
Yeah.
He's known for offense in college football at Oregon, and then his time in the NFL with Philadelphia. High explosion, and they just don't have it. Turn the ball over way too much. They're not getting it done. Tennessee and their schedule, we've talked about what they're about to face going on the rest of the season. I don't feel good about them. Florida State in the ACC, it's a little bit easier, and they have talent. I mean, they start off fast. I mean, first half, they're dominating football. They could have won both games. Second half versus Boise State, second half this past week, they kind of just fall asleep. So I don't know if what Willie Taggart is saying at halftime, but it needs to change, or someone else needs to say something, or whatever they're eating. I don't know. A change needs to happen within that locker room heading into the third quarter. Because I like Blackman, I like Cam Akers, I like the receivers. They have plenty of talent. They have talent on the defensive side of the football. So, and like I said, you look at their schedule, it's a little bit easier than, say, what Tennessee has to face. So I think Florida State has the ability to turn it around this year. I don't think they're a 10-win team based on their schedule. I think they're a 7, 8-win team. But they make a bowl game, which is most important.
And where does the blame fall? Because you look at UCLA with their really slow start. They go to Cincinnati in week 1. Dorian Thompson-Robinson turns the ball over 4 times. I mean, they look awful, only put 14 points on the board. You see Tennessee fall to Georgia State in Neyland Stadium, something that should have never happened, but it did. And then Florida State, I mean, sleepwalks through the second half against Boise State and blows an 18-point lead. Is this the head coach's fault? It's week 1, Aaron. These guys got to be ready to play. I mean, come on.
I think it's a mixture. I think it's head coaches like Tennessee with Jim Chaney trying to install new plays that maybe his guys aren't ready to do. I mean, we saw Garantano these past 2 weeks. Looks nothing like the guy we saw last year. I mean, he's turned the ball over. He's staring down receivers. He's not accurate. So maybe Jim Chaney's putting too much on his plate. It needs to kind of reel it back a little bit, simplify the game plan. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to leadership. I mean, how much heart and how much do you want to actually win football games? And that starts with the players. You know, the best teams are not the teams that are driven by the coach. It's the teams that are driven by the players. So you can make all the excuses you want about bad coaching, about bad play calling. If you're not getting the job done and you don't have a leadership, especially from your juniors and seniors, your upperclassmen, you're not going to win close football games. And a lot of these games are coming down to the wire. Teams with better leaderships are going to win them.
I'll give you a hot take. I think Tennessee is going to win the most games out of those 3 teams, Florida State, Tennessee, and UCLA. And I'll give you an excuse as well. You mentioned Florida State blowing it in the second half of that game against Boise State. College football halftimes entirely too long.
Yes.
Way too long. Got to shorten them up. We need faster paced games. We need faster paced games.
They need to go from their 3.5 to 4 hours. It needs to be 3 hours.
Yeah.
They need the NFL model. Enough with the replays, too.
Oh, my
Some of these replays are, it's too much. You know, I know you want to make sure you're perfect, but this is a game played by humans. This is a game refereed by humans.
Yes.
There are going to be mistakes. Fans are going to be upset. But you can't have a 5-hour game because you're going to review every single touchdown, every single play. Mistakes will happen. Just don't pull a Saints mistake when it's clearly a pass interference. That's on a different level.
Absolutely. All right, let's look towards week 3. We got a little bit of a light week on the schedule, but some good games that we can touch on right now. I want to start in East Lansing. Arizona State is heading up to play number 18 ranked Michigan State. And Michigan State in the Big Ten East, they could make some noise. Coach D'Antonio wants to run the ball. They got a great defense with a ton of returning starters.
And Brian Lewerke's healthy and he's playing well. I think that's the key. This team last year was just so banged up. The quarterback position, defense, I mean, they were playing with backups for the majority of the season. So they're healthy. Lewerke's taking care of the football. The run game's going well. They'll continue to play great defense. So I like Michigan State in this game.
So do I. I think Michigan State has the home field advantage. Herm Edwards going into his second year with Arizona State. I just don't think they have enough firepower to keep up with Michigan State.
Did we agree on our first game of the year on the show?
We did. That could be
a surprise.
Trouble. Let's go to the next game. We just talked about it with Bryce Love. Stanford Cardinal coming off that terrible loss in the Coliseum to USC. They're heading out east to take on Central Florida in the bounce house. Golden Knights ranked number 17.
I like Stanford in this one. I'm not in love with the quarterbacks that have kind of been playing for UCF through these first 2 games. Wimbush, still a very inaccurate quarterback. Did not look for his stats to not match what he looked like playing in that first game. So, and I think Stanford's a good football team. I do. If KJ Costello's back, or even the backup Mills is playing, with their defense, and it's not like UCF is sneaking up on anyone anymore.
Yeah.
I think teams see UCF on their schedule, and they're like, oh, whatever. They're not thinking that. They're like, we got to beat the crap out of them because this is actually a pretty good football team. They've had a great record these past few years. So Stanford's not going to sleepwalk in this game, and I think they're going to kind of get some, I guess you could say, revenge for what happened last week versus USC.
Yeah, backs are up against the wall, and for the Pac-12, really, much less for Stanford alone, they have to get a victory here. They have to go across country and win one for the Pac-12, the Power 5, for themselves, for Stanford. So I'm on the same side as you again. Watch out. Stanford's going to win. A game that I think will be interesting this week, number 2 Alabama travels to South Carolina in Columbia. Last time they played there, Steven Garcia led the Gamecocks to a huge upset victory. Probably not going to happen this time around. Quarterback Jake Bentley for the Gamecocks out for the season. Ryan Helinski gets his second start. He's a true freshman. I asked Jonathan Allen about this earlier. What is Nick Saban saying? These guys are going to try to take the life out of this kid. Quite frankly, I feel bad for him.
I wish I could hear the trash talking going on. That defense is going to be smack talking to him. I mean, when we had played great defenses and I was a freshman, that's all you heard was just chirping like, hey, rookie, and I'm going to keep it PG here.
Yeah.
We're coming after you pretty much. And I'm like, they're just shaking like, oh, my God, I'm going to die this game. So that's going to be this game right now for him. I don't care if it's at home. That defense is coming to hunt. And you saw the game plan last week for South Carolina. Keep it very easy for him. First game, hitches, slants. They had one post route he overthrew. He hit the next one, which was nice. A couple of go balls, but very easy kind of work him into it. So they're going to have to open it up because if you're going to throw hitches and slants, that's not going to work for this defense. They're going to be all on top of it. So I know he's a freshman, but South Carolina has to at least take a couple of chances, maybe 2 shots per quarter, to try to make some kind of magic to stay in this football game. But Alabama, Tua, those receivers, they're too much for anyone. I think they go out there and dominate.
Yeah, I mean, magic is a word that should be used often this week in South Carolina because that defense paired with 60 points of offense on the other side in Alabama. Good luck, my friend Ryan Helinski. We're hoping for the best for you. It's just not going to happen this week.
Just
a great rivalry, though.
Don't get hurt.
A great rivalry in the Midwest. Number 19, Iowa, is going to Ames to play Iowa State. And Iowa State had a lot of kind of that sleeper love in the Big 12. Remember, Big 12 Conference Championship, just the top 2 teams go. So they could have an opportunity to backdoor their way in. But Iowa off to a great start this year. I like the Hawkeyes here.
Yeah, Nate Stanley, 6 touchdowns this year so far. Great defense. They shut out, I forget who they played last week. They had a shutout versus, I think, Rutgers.
Yes.
So the team's playing well. And in Iowa State, they had a bye, but they almost lost their first game.
To Northern Iowa.
Yeah. So you don't feel very confident with a team that almost is like feeling confident that Tennessee's going to win after losing their couple games. So it doesn't make you feel really good if you're picking games. So like I said, I like Iowa for all the right things. Great quarterback, takes care of the football, and a great defense. I think this is a very dangerous team throughout the entire season.
We'll see if Matt Campbell, the Iowa State head coach, can cook something up in Ames to keep their momentum going in 2019. One team that took a big-time hit in terms of momentum this past week, Kentucky, lost starting quarterback Terry Wilson for the year with a knee injury. Number 9, Florida, heading into Lexington. They're looking to avenge a really bad loss at home last year against the Wildcats. We'll see if Dan Mullen can get that offense going.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I think they've circled this on their calendar for the past 6 months of we want revenge versus Kentucky. And I think Felipe Franks, shaky in the first game, had some good moments versus Miami, had some Felipe-type moments that we're all accustomed to seeing. But you saw him last week. I mean, it was versus a lesser opponent, but 15 for 15 to start the game, 25 completions, the most in his career. He looked comfortable watching the film. He was getting through his reads. He was getting from 1 to 2 to 3, so you can start to see his mind working. I think that's a big positive for Dan Mullen in this offense. You see him getting through his progression smoothly. He's running it when he needs to run it. He's accurate with the bubble screens, the hitches, the in routes. And then he's taking shots, and he's making completions down the field as well. So I think Felipe is ready to kind of continue to push out all the outside noise, to step up as a leader. And I just don't think Kentucky overcomes a quarterback injury right now. I think this offense is kind of one-dimensional already. I think they're going to struggle versus a very good Florida defense.
Yeah, I got to give a shout-out to my man Kavasier Smoke. Best name in college football by a mile. Kentucky's running back filling in for Benny Snell, who's now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So tough spot for Kentucky without Terry Wilson this week. Florida probably gets the victory there in Lexington. Last game, #1 Clemson traveling to Syracuse to play in the Carrier Dome. 2 years ago, Kelly Bryant got knocked out of this game, and Syracuse was able to upset the Tigers. Probably not going to happen this year. They looked really stout on the defensive side of the ball last week against Texas A&M. And then on offense, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got Travis Etienne, you got Justin Ross, you got T. Higgins. It's just an onslaught of talent and explosiveness and firepower. Clemson probably puts a statement win.
They almost lost last year, though. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Clemson had to convert a 4th down.
Trevor Lawrence got knocked out of the
game.
Trevor
Lawrence got knocked out. They had to convert a 4th down to win that football game.
Right.
I mean, Syracuse almost won back-to-back years versus Clemson. So it's kind of one of those things. I mean, do they have their number? Do they just know schematically these coaches how to take care of them? I don't think so. You look at Trevor Lawrence, week 1, 2 picks for Georgia Tech. Week 2, played better, but still not up to that Heisman hype that we all are accustomed to seeing him play towards the end of last season. So I think this is his big game. I think he's knocked the rust off. I think he's knocked off all the Heisman talk, the I'm the best quarterback in the nation talk. I think he goes out there this week, puts up 5 or 6 touchdowns in the first 3 quarters, and they absolutely blow out Syracuse in the Dome.
Yeah, I mean, Syracuse just gave up 63 points to Maryland.
42 in the first half.
They cannot be feeling too good about what they're going to face against Clemson this weekend in the Carrier Dome. I would expect more of the same, though. I mean, Clemson wins games by double digits every single week. That's just what they do now, and they'll be in the playoff because they're going to run through the ACC. I don't see anything that would make me think otherwise. But hey, week 3 coming up, Aaron. I'm looking forward to it. This 2019 college football season already off to a fast start. And so are we right here on Campus Lore Live. So be sure to tune back into us next week.